Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franson here, co-host for this show where we feature top restaurateurs, investors, and business leaders. This is part of our SpotOn series. SpotOn has the best-in-class payment platform for retail. They have a flagship solution called SpotOn Restaurant where they combine marketing, software, and payments all in one. They've served everyone from larger chains like Dairy Queen and Subway to small mom-and-pop restaurants. To learn more, go to SpotOn.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships through Done-For-You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships with clients, referral partners, and thought leaders in your space, there's no better way to do it than through podcasts and content marketing. To learn more, go to rise25media.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. Paul Carolan is the principal at Paul Carolan Consulting. He brings over 40 years of experience in the hospitality industry with a proven track record of creating financial and unit growth. He became president of Genghis Grill in February of 2020, just before COVID hit. Between then and when he finished his career as CEO in September of 2021, Genghis Grill never closed a store, nor did they lose anybody from their leadership or management teams. In the last 10 years, Paul has held various C-suite positions, including CEO of Genghis Grill, as I mentioned. He's also been president and COO of Mongolian Concepts Restaurant Group, which includes Genghis Grill and BD's Mongolian and Flat Top Grill. He was the president of Bruegger's Bagels and chief development officer for Duff America, which includes Bruegger's and 4 other brands. His tenure spans multiple segments in hospitality, including branded chains with 300-plus locations, airport and managed services and concessions. His multifaceted experience, along with strong financial acumen as a CPA, makes him uniquely qualified to help companies unleash their growth potential. I'm getting tongue-tied here. Paul, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Chad?
Great. Thank you. So what made you decide to become a consultant after spending so many successful decades in those major hospitality brands and restaurants?
You know, it's a great question. I finished my tenure at Genghis, and I really sat down and said, okay, what's the next step? And, so many times you try to get through a lot of stuff. And my conclusion was, I'm either going to sign up for another 3-year tour with another company, 3 to 4 years. And as a CEO, you can't shortchange any company you go with. So, and I looked and I said, do I want to do that? Or, as you just went through my bio, use that experience to help other companies grow. And luckily, my conclusion was, I really would like to help others grow. I've been through a lot over my career. I think I have a lot to offer. I've concluded that I really want to work with people I like and enjoy being with and be able to give back. So I'm also working with a woman by the name of Marty Gorham. Marty Gorham and I worked together for over 25 years. She has tremendous experiences as well. And she had just finished her tour. And we sat down and said, you know what? Let's throw together. We'll do some of our separate things, but we'll work together. But we want to work with people and companies that we respect and trust, and they know us. And we want to give back at the end. At the end of this, besides helping those companies, we are going to give back a portion of all our profits to various charitable organizations, because the industry has been tremendous to us, and we want to help others thrive in this industry as well.
You talked about growth kind of being your primary focus. I'm sure that was hard to accomplish during your time with Genghis Grill. How many stores does Genghis Grill have?
Genghis Grill has approximately 50-some stores. And in growth, it really, there's multiple facets you have to go through to grow. I've worked with a lot of companies who say, hey, I want to grow. And I go, great. As I came on, so where are we? And there's a growth strategy and cycle you have to go through. And through that process, everybody isn't where they want to be. Some things you don't have to work on because they're in great shape. But with each brand I've worked with over the years, there's always a facet of growth that needs to be worked on before, if you really want to sustain growth. You've seen companies grow out there that, quite honestly, have really a boom and a bust, and that's not sustainable. And if you look at great companies that are sustainable, they have a pretty set process they go through, and that's what I try to bring to the table with the teams I'm going to work with.
What is included in growth besides just opening new stores?
That's a great question. Growth is really focused on really 3 or 4, quadrants. You have to have a great culture first. If your culture isn't sound and trusting and transparent, you can't build. You can't grow because everybody's looking over their shoulder. So really, you got to have a great culture first. Secondly, you have to have a great team. So being a great team is, do you have the right people in the right places, so that if you're wanting to grow at a good pace, is your infrastructure around your team set up? Meaning, can you train more managers? Can you train franchisees if you want to go down to franchise growth? Do you have the ability to build? And then the next piece comes the financial piece. You have to have a sound financial. So growth isn't just, as you say, store counts. Growth is about, can you duplicate yourself year over year? The hardest person to compete with is not your competition, it's yourself. Can you have multiple years of sustained traffic and sales growth? And then to get it to flow, you got to get it to flow to the bottom line. So that financial relationship between sales and capital is really critical. Somebody could have absolutely gorgeous stores. I literally talked to a friend of mine the other day, and he says, "Oh, I got downsized out of my company." I said, "Really? Were they making money?" He goes, "Well, they were doing really good EBITDA." I said, "But were they making money?" You could have great EBITDA, but if your balance sheet isn't doing well and the cost of building that restaurant is too high, you don't have the right ratios, you can't grow. You run out of money. So the next thing is, you have to have good financials and sound financials, and then the ratio and the brand itself has to be relevant. When I built a lot of non-traditional business, I would have people ask me, "I want to get a non-traditional." I said, "Well, I don't want to be rude, but you're not relevant on the street. Trying to make it smaller and putting it in the airport isn't going to help you. We got to get you relevant on the street first. So then you got to bring the right people in to help you with that."
So during your time at Genghis Grill as a president and CEO, basically, that was during COVID, the past 18 months, whatever, all during COVID, essentially. Did you guys open any new stores?
I'll give you a little, let's back up to 2017. Mm-hmm. 2017, I just finished my trek at Bruegger's, and Jim Vince was the CEO at the time of Genghis Grill and Mongolian Concepts. Then he asked me to come on and help him as a consultant for the first quarter. And what we found was we needed to build on some of the things I just talked about. We got to build the team. We got to help with the infrastructure. We were losing negative sales for multiple years. So that first quarter, with a great team, with Doug Wilmarth was our chief marketing officer, we restructured the concept. We built on what was really good, which was people and food, and we had decent locations, reinvested back into the business substantially, rebuilt the infrastructure, if you will. And we started positive comp store sales really in our second quarter of 2018. At the same time, we started a remodel program. And through that remodel program, we found that we were lifting sales roughly 10 to 15% on each remodel, all through the balance of 2018. And then into 2019, we developed a brand new prototype, and we opened up a brand new store December 2019 in Grand Prairie, Texas. Absolutely gorgeous store. And you're like, we're rocking. We got remodel program figured out. We got a brand new store opened up. We think it's the right place, because when you hadn't opened up stores in a while, your real estate model really is fairly tenuous, but we did a lot of good work. We rolled into 2020, first quarter, new store was doing well. First quarter was on a track record again to be our 7th positive comp store sales. And then boom, February hit. Midway through that first quarter, Jim informed me, he says, "Hey, I'm going to retire." I said, "Well, congratulations, good for you." She said, "But we're going to get with the board, and we believe you'll be the president," in which that's what happened. And that happened around February. And so we're rolling, and all of a sudden I remember sitting in the break room with Jim and Doug, and I said, "Hey, this COVID thing, what do you guys think about this?" They go, "I don't know. Let's wait and see what happens." Well, wait and see what happens was boom. Our sales plummeted coming into March, and that's when I became president. And I remember walking into Jim's office on March 16th, and I said, "I think I know what the plan is." He goes, "Really? Good luck." Because, yeah, what is the plan? I said, "Well, we're not going to close the restaurant. We're going to keep the lights on." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "We cannot afford to close a restaurant. It'll be over $50,000 to reopen a restaurant. Once you shut it down, you lose the staff and the people and everything else." So we didn't close the restaurant. I said, "But," he says, "Okay, so what else are you going to?" I said, "But I'm going to furlough everybody above the store, including myself." So I had a meeting with the team. And I made the announcement. Team, our sales at that point in March 16th were approximately 18% of 2019 sales. I mean, it was holy crap. And PPP didn't exist. None of that existed at that time. We were watching, we did everything we could to conserve cash. And we literally sat down that Friday. I think it was around March 19th. And I said to the team, "Hey, here's the deal. We're going to have to furlough everybody in the company above the store. These 7 people are going to stay, but they're going to above store, but they're going to get 75% of their pay." And everybody's looking at me, and it was a very solemn moment. And we're all like, "Holy cow, this is something." And people are starting to pack up their boxes and stuff and head out of the office. I said, "Hey, before everybody leaves, come on into the executive conference room. I want to talk to you." And I said, "Here's the deal. We're not going to let this company fail. So Monday, I'm coming back to work, and I need to know who all's coming back." And this goes back to that active, intentional leadership that I work on, is that if I didn't have trust in the organization at that point, who knew what was going to happen? And so 9:30 Monday morning, I said, "Get on the conference call if you're coming back. And if you're not going to come back, I understand. I can't pay you, but we're not going to let this company fail." And at 9:30 Monday morning, the dings start. First, that music, that annoying, back then it was all conference call music, was playing, and the dings started coming back. And everybody who was furloughed came back 100% and said, "We're in. Let's make this thing work." I said, "Okay, let's go. We're going to open up the restaurants May 1st. Now, our money was going to run out April 12th. We projected out our cash flow. We reached out to every one of our vendors, every one of our landlords, and said, "I cannot afford to pay you, but we are not going to close, and we will be good to our obligations. We will not stick you." I reached out to all our franchisees and I said, "You don't have to pay me. You need all the cash you can. So I'm suspending royalties. I'm spending ad fund. We are going to survive this. Just don't close." We filed for our PPP on April 3rd, and we got funded on April 8th.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, I felt like it was the wonderful life. I kept looking at the money, put it in the safe. Maybe it'll multiply. I don't know. So based on that, we came back and we reopened all our dining rooms in May and in Texas. And we continued to build back. We added back lots of things we did for the team. We said to the teammates that if I know we can't have you all work because there's no business, but we'll feed you. So if you want to eat, come in every day and get a bowl, and we'll build a bowl for you and we'll feed you. I had managers, and I was out. I mean, I didn't, hunker down in my office. I'm driving through restaurants and they're looking at me, "Paul, what are you doing here?" I said, "If you're working, I'm working." And I had managers in tears in their eyes saying, "You don't have to pay me. I know you're not getting paid." I said, "Don't worry about me. I'm worried about you. We're going to keep this restaurant open." So we fed teammates. We fed teammates from other restaurants that we said, "If you can't eat, come to our restaurant and we'll feed you. Also, give me your email address and phone number, because we'll offer you a job when we get back on our feet." We sent codes out to our rewards members saying, "If you can't eat," now you got to remember, back in this time, we didn't know what was going on. "If you can't eat, here's a code, and put it in, and you can pick up a meal for us. And if you don't need it, give it to somebody else." We were feeding the hospitals and all that stuff. And then in the fall, we realized that, a lot of our teammates' kids, they didn't have money to buy coats. So we bought coats for all the hourly team members. I didn't care if it was their kid, their aunt, their nephew. It didn't matter. And we gave them all gift cards for to go and shop and buy the coat themselves, as opposed to having one, here's one, does this fit you? We gave them all either whatever it was, Target or Walmart or whatever was where they were. And through that, we also opened up full transparency of the financials. I shared every month with the general managers, this is how much money we have in the bank. This is what we're spending our money on. And all the way through, same thing with our partners. And you fast forward to the end of 2020, we stayed open. We only closed one store, and it was really driven by a landlord, not us. We didn't lose one manager. The whole leadership team stayed. And at the end, all of our vendors were caught up, and or we had an agreement with them. Cisco was absolutely tremendous. They extended terms to us. That was the way you had to have food. So we had to have food and people. And through all that, we were able to muscle through and get to the end of the year. And we actually ended the year with more cash in the bank than we started the year. So
wow, amazing. So
we didn't open up any more stores,
right? So would you say? But I would think that the organization experienced as much growth during that time as maybe you would have during a time where you were opening up multiple stores.
Yeah, we did, because we tapped into stuff that we never thought we were going to do. For example, in December 2019, we had just launched DoorDash. We got lucky. And up until then, our to-go business was 14%. And that was somebody coming in, building a bowl, and carrying it out. I mean, that's like really hard to-go business. So we launched, DoorDash. Doug Wilmarth did a great job, set us all up. Olo was our consolidator, and it worked well. Well, that launched us so well into 20 with COVID. And then we added Uber Eats. We added curbside, we added dispatch. It drove our off-premise sales to, obviously, at one point it was 100% of our sales, but it started to settle. I was tracking it versus 2019. We started settling around 30 to 35% of our off-premise sales. Now we're 30 to 35% of 2019 sales. So then heading into 21, the plan was, if we can keep that and build back our dining rooms, we'll be up 15%. And it worked in the DFW market. That really happened. We got impacted by other markets because when COVID came on and opened and closed, it was very unpredictable. Each state had its own rules and regs. But we fast forward our off-premise business, at an incredible pace. We opened up and designed. Back to Doug, we came back. We created a ghost kitchen, Stir Fry Chef today, and it still exists. We launched it with the exact same food that we used from Genghis, but we did it more in an Asian-oriented food. And we developed another 2% of sales was coming from our ghost kitchen. And then we also changed even the way we did bringing up things that we couldn't really sell before because of COVID. You couldn't go and build. A lot of times you couldn't talk to anybody. So we had to ask you, did you want an egg with this? Did you want rice with this? Well, we never could ask that before. So then we were able to charge for eggs. We charged 49 cents for an egg. 55% of our bowls had eggs in it that we never got paid for. Wow. That was, when we put it in place, that was worth over $750,000 in sales. That just went right from the top to the bottom. So, yeah, we did grow. You didn't see it because every one of these were battles to keep survival. But the innovation that we had to come up with as a team, we would meet literally every 3 times a week. We'd meet as a leadership team. Somebody would have an idea. Hey, let's do family meals. Let's do this. So COVID really forced us and companies to be really tight, really transparent, and really focused. And that focus really improved our business.
Is COVID the most unique kind of challenge that you've faced during the course of your accomplished career?
It was probably one of the most rewarding and challenging leadership place to be. it was hard when I converted from being an accountant to being a restaurateur. I was always on the accounting side of restaurant. That was different. I moved my family out of Washington, D.C., and we moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and learning not to be behind the computer. Those are great learning experiences, but the methods and the approach of the business you learn from each time. From an existential threat, COVID was the hardest. The rest of the things that I did in my career was always around growth, and it's always preparing to grow. I will say, in 2008, when I was at Einstein Brothers, when the financial crash, if you will, whatever we call that now, it seems so long ago. That was really disturbing more than anything. I went to a conference, walking in, and they said, "How's business?" I said, "Oh man, we're growing unbelievably." I mean, we were at a pace, we were growing maybe 40 to 50 restaurants a year. And I left, and then also my phone started blowing up halfway through the conference of people canceling, because we did a lot of non-traditional. A lot of non-traditional business was also getting canceled. I'm going, what is going on? And I finally had to call Paul Murphy, who was our CEO at the time. I said, "Well, I don't know what just happened, but I've lost 3/4 of the pipeline, and I'm still trying to figure out what's going on." He goes, "Did you see this coming?" I said, "I have no idea what I'm looking at, but no, I didn't. Did you see it coming?" And so that was really hard because you had to retrench and do things. But this was different. This was, you're worried about people's health. You're worried about people dying because we didn't know. So there was, both your customers' health as well as our employees' health, and how do you deal with it and all that. You really had to be nimble. So it was just different. But with faith and your team being tight, we were able to get through it, and that was probably the biggest blessing. It was, we went into it, and Doug and I talked about it. He says, "Our mission is not to close a restaurant." And when I left, Doug said, "Mission accomplished, Paul. Congratulations. Job well done."
You talked about there are two things I want to discuss with you: your transition from being an accountant into the restaurant industry, but also active intentional leadership.
Sure.
Was that let's start with that. Was that something that kind of evolved during your career? When did you decide, like, this is something I'm utilizing and applying?
I'd love to say I woke up one day and said, "Oh, let me write this down and I'll apply." That wasn't the case. It really evolved, quite honestly. And I look back in my career and I said, and then I coined that term probably at a conference we did about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. But, and so let me give you a little bit of the elements. How do you know if you're an active intentional leadership? So I'm going to grab a piece of paper, so I apologize because it is written down.
Great.
The leader is grounded in trust and core values. I'm a real believer, if you ever get a chance, read Stephen Covey's book, Speed of Trust. Outstanding book. It really, I had him speak at the Bruegger's conference, and he listened to me talk before that. And he came up and says, "Paul's applying this book." I don't know if he read it beforehand or not. And I hadn't. I read it afterwards. I go, "Oh, that's really cool. That's the stuff we do." And that's kind of how I try to lead. You have to believe in your team and have high expectations. You have to be transparent with critical information. So many times people don't share information because they don't believe your team is capable of understanding it. And I don't believe that. I think our teams are very capable. You have to be an active listener. You have to vet the values, the team and individual, and understand. And that's about inclusion. You really have to sit down. My dad, back in the day, said to me, "If you're ever the guy," he was a steam fitter. He worked in Pabst Blue Ribbon Brewery. And he said, "If you were ever the guy, just talk to the people who do the work. They can really help you. So many of you," as he used the word, "jamokes, don't ever talk to us." And that's that. I always learned that. And I always would sit down and talk to the cooks. I talked to the dishwashers. And they would always tell you the truth. But I wanted to know who they were and let them know that I'm just Paul. I'm nobody special. I just happen to do this job. You happen to do that job. But you got to really understand them and understand why they're there. Your actions have to speak louder than your words. You have to be that person who picks up the piece of paper. You have to be the person who lets people work and not try to be the hero. Inspect what you expect and then coach it accordingly. You may have an idea how this is supposed to work, and until you go out and see it, it doesn't necessarily work the way you think. So you have to inspect. And also that's an opportunity to catch and coach and to reward somebody on doing a really good job. You have to be empathetic, not sympathetic. And that's a really key term. Empathetic, people come in and you go, geez, this is really hard and I don't have this to do it. I got it. Yeah, it is. So how are we going to address it? Sympathetic would be, okay, I know it is hard. I'm really sorry. And so let me do that for you. Well, they didn't learn anything from that. If I can teach you through that struggle, I do a lot of weightlifting in my past. And the only way you got bigger is you had to have a little bit of pain. And learn, you have to have pain. That struggle is the pain. You learn through struggle. Nobody learns through easy times. You have to teach and coach all day long. And you also have to show and let them show you and not tell. Too many times leaders come in and tell. And what happens is they only do what you told them to do. But if you can come in and say, show me how your bathrooms are. Your bathroom's clean? Show me the bathrooms. Well, that puts the onus on them to be prideful for what they've done. And then when they show it and you go, man, that's great. This is a really good bathroom. They're so excited. I learned it from being an hourly myself. When somebody walks through and says, wow, that's a really good hamburger. You feel really good about that versus somebody coming in, you need to put pickles on it. And you're like, really? I mean, I've done 1,000 of these hamburgers. I missed one pickle and now you're giving me a hard time about it. You have to be consistent and predictable. And you have to have expectations that everybody knows and believes. And if you have that, your team is fully integrated. And it started back to when I became an accountant. I used to listen to a lot of Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence or Thriving on Chaos. And when I was an accountant, when I first became an operator in Memphis, Tennessee, I ran Memphis International Airport. I would post the sales out front of the cash room where all the cashiers came in for every restaurant. This year and last year, every day I posted. And my boss came in one day and he says, are you worried about somebody seeing those sales? I go, what are they going to do with it? If they know if they're winning or losing, that's all I want them to do. And I would present the financials to the whole hourly team, all 200, 300 people we had. And I would explain it to them as a checkbook and out of $1. And what I found was that if I shared that information, they got better because they were invested in and they understood what's the variable cost there. It's you in the room. It's the variable cost. So we don't want to have a variable cost. I don't need to have to cut labor. I want to add labor. And so that's kind of how it evolved, if you will.
Sure. I wouldn't think, as an accountant, those are principles that you would need, but I guess you could use them in any line of work.
Oh yeah. This is, what I read is nothing to do with being a restaurateur. It has to do with just leadership, quite honestly. And, I'm on I went to Virginia Tech and I'm on the Virginia Tech Hospitality School alumni board. I was just teaching this class last week on active intentional leadership, and they're on how to lead. I mean, because when you're coming out of school, you don't really know anything about leading people. You got a lot of theory. So it's just trying to teach them how to, first round level, if you can get some of this down, you're going to be in so much better shape.
What made the restaurant industry specifically appealing to you as opposed to, having an accounting office?
Yeah, I would love to say it was a strategy of mine coming out of school. I was in public accounting for a year back in, I'm going to date myself, 1980. And then Ronald Reagan became president. And I was in Northern Virginia. We're doing all pretty much government contract audits, and he froze all the contractors. And I got a half a paycheck one day. Half a paycheck, which was $12,500 a year. That's not a whole lot of money. And I said, this isn't going to work too well. And so I went to work for Marriott Corporation. It was in Bethesda, Maryland. And I was I was a restaurant. Well, prior to that, I was the building services staff accountant. So I was like the lowest level accountant you could be in Marriott. I took care of maintenance and all that stuff. But that was all part of our architecture and construction division. So I ended up being a restaurant construction project accountant purely by chance. Ended up getting into lease and debt accounting, a lot of restaurants purely by chance. And I eventually ended up in corporate accounting, and we were doing a lot of acquisitions, and I would be bringing all those companies we bought in. And we finally acquired Wags Family Restaurants out of Chicago, which was owned by Walgreens at the time, and Bickford's, which is in Massachusetts. And I said, I'm really getting sick of accounting for what everybody does. What if I got into it? And I went down into the accounting side of acquired restaurant concepts at Marriott. And I really thrived on it. And I had a great mentor, Dan Bloodwell, and he was an ex-accountant, and he would spend most of his time, he was our VP, in the field. And I would go with him 2 to 3 weeks of a month. I'd be with him in the field. And I just really enjoyed being with the team and being with the people. I wasn't your traditional CPA. I didn't get real excited about, I did geeky stuff, but I didn't get excited about that. And I finally sat and, I would go in when I was in a restaurant. I moved eventually get into airport concessions on the finance side, and I would be sent out to go work with this team to fix this. I used to think, if they only listened to the accountant, things would be so much easier. So then I said, I could do this. I flipped, got a great opportunity, and I realized, wow, people are a lot harder than counting beans. But the concept of sharing the information and teaching it, I just thrived on running teams and helping teams and seeing people do things that they didn't believe they could do. And that was the most rewarding piece. And that's what hooked me in the restaurant business, and been here, my whole career. And sure. I would love to say it was a planned drill, but it wasn't. I went to school to be an accountant, and here I am. So,
are there any milestones kind of that you accomplished during your career that just come to mind that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, when I was at Memphis International Airport, this again, timestamp this. This is in early 90s. I had in the airport business, there's minority business partners that we had. And there was a gentleman by the name of David Porter. And you can see him over my shoulder. He's this guy up here. Mm-hmm. David wrote with Isaac Hayes. So it was Porter Hayes. He wrote for Stax Recording. He had songs that you probably heard, Hold On, I'm Coming, Soul Man. He's a Grammy Hall of Fame writer. His book is he's got over 500 or some songs. David was he was about 15 to 20 years to my senior. So I was like 35-year-old kid, if you will, going down there. And David and I opened up a live blues club in Memphis International Airport. And back in those days, the minority business partners weren't really partners. They weren't treated with the level of respect that you really would like to have. And I learned so much from David being in Memphis. So I ended up doing a 51-49 joint venture with David Porter. He had a little candy store, and I bought his candy store through HMS Host bought it, and I put in the first Starbucks in the state of Tennessee in where his candy store was. And then we rolled that money into this blues club. And we the lead saxophone player for Otis Redding was our lead act. And we opened up this really cool bar. It emulated everything that was on Beale Street. And it just was awesome. And we did it. We had Corky's Barbecue in it. And to this day, David and I are very close personal friends. I literally was just thinking about him this morning, and his song, Hold On, I'm Coming, is my ringtone. But we talk probably once every, 3 or 4 months. But the ability to break the pattern of minority businesses in airports and really do a real joint venture, I think is one of my milestones that I'm really proud of. I think the other was changing careers. There was a point when I got to Dallas. My youngest daughter had been in more schools than she was age. And I said, okay, I can't move anymore. And I was running DFW Airport in a region, as well as Reunion Arena, where the Dallas Stars played. And I got a call to go into Aramark. And I think the piece that I learned there was so many people in my career, and when you're in the airport business, you just stay in the airport business. That's a whole career. Changing careers to another contract feeder and learning about how corporate dining works and managed services works. And then again, changing again and going to Einstein Brothers, which then gave me a whole nother view of a career path. Then I became a developer. I went into non-traditional development, and then we're designing restaurants. I'm negotiating deals, but I used my airport and Aramark relationships to sell into them, and that worked out really well. And that's the next thing I went into private equity with Sun Capital, and for about almost 2 years, then I recruited away and become a chief development officer. Traditional chief development officers are, architectural people or construction people. I was a deal guy, and I came in and for whatever reason, I would be able to look at brands and see what the essence of that brand is. How do we build it out? And that was a great career. And then Claude Bergeron, who was a CEO at Duff, gave me a huge opportunity to become president of Bruegger's. And I remember when that happened, we needed somebody, and he goes, "Well, who's going to be president of Bruegger's?" I said, "Well, I'll do it." He goes, "Really?" I said, "I probably know more about bagels than anybody else," because at that point I had already ran Manhattan Bagel and I ran Einstein's Bagels, from a development and non-traditional franchising business. I said, "I think I pretty much know bagels," and that was a great, milestone in my life to be able to now run a business and start, really growing. And even there, we did a really cool deal with Jamba Juice, and we did a co-branding with Jamba Juice and Bruegger's, which was really cool. And that went 360 on me, because eventually Einstein Brothers bought Bruegger's, and I said, "Well, I've been to this dance before." So, but that they moved it all up to Colorado, and I wasn't about to leave Texas at that time. So, the people are what really makes it fun. And I look at I grow businesses through people and innovation, but you grow from wherever that restaurant company is, and then you start figuring out where you're going to go.
So you have transitioned now into being a consultant. Describe your ideal client, and then tell me how they could benefit.
Sure. So my ideal client has been interesting, because I've been talking to a lot of folks. I've been theoretically a consultant now for since September, and so it's been a fairly short run. But the way they're looking at using us right now is really pretty in a handful of areas. One is partial or fractional C-level position, depending on where they are with their business. We also are looking at helping with development strategy as a consultant or advisor. A lot of times, I think with smaller companies who want to grow, if they cannot stumble through the things that we all have stumbled through, they can grow more effectively. So I can help small to mid-sized companies that are in that point where they want to kick up to that next level. They're a hot concept, or they're hot in their market. I can help them get to that next level where they can't afford to bring on a chief development officer, if you will. Also working with new business development. I see that there's a need out there right now for, especially if someone's looking to acquire a piece of business, there's a lot of due diligence that's done. There's really three, levels of due diligence. You have to do the financial piece. If I think of it a three-legged stool, you have to do the brand piece. If you're buying a brand, does this thing have any relevance? Why are you buying this? And does it have relevance? So you need a brand person to do that. Well, the other piece that I think is usually gets shortchanged or looked over is how well is the business being run? How well are the stores being run? Are they staffed properly? Do the financials really represent that you're extrapolating your multiple on what's going on in the business? So I see that as another niche where I can come in and help PE firms or other firms that are looking to buy a business to say, okay, you got the first two because they nail the financials. They usually bring in a third party to do the brand evaluation, but then they kind of skim over and just assume the current management team. I'm not saying the management teams are bad, but they may not be able to see that opportunity and how to grow, because as they write those, being on the other side, I've watched some of these deals get written and they're assuming so much, improvement in margins or driving a sales. Well, if they're not ready to do that, your pro forma's, kind of screwed up in the beginning. And then on the other side is once you bought it, you want to go get to that pro forma level fast. So I can help you go through that piece. And then the last one is I'm having between private companies and PE firms, they're coming to me asking, can you work with our leadership team? A lot of times there's a gap of understanding, and not because people aren't smart enough, but they're saying two different things or they see two different things. So can you help us with our leadership team bridge the knowledge base to get them up to speed? They've never, you buy a private equity firm buying a privately owned company, the founders and all, they're not used to people being in their business that a PE firm will be. And they're not being mean. They just are. PE firms buy you for a reason. And it's not to leave you where you are. It's to build on you, to save on you, and tuck you in, or whatever that is. And I can be that, gap of communication. I can speak both languages pretty fluently. So that's where I see I'm fitting that mold. And then the last piece is minority businesses looking to grow into the airports or into managed services. We see that as a great opportunity to help them. How do they get prepared? How do they package themselves properly? How do they thrive in that environment? And through that, we're helping companies grow, helping them grow to where they're the best potential they can be. You can't mitigate headwinds, but you also don't want headwinds or COVID to be the excuse as to why you can't deliver something. So right now, the problem right now in the business is there's this cloud of COVID. So that gives you all the reasons that you can. My food cost is off. Well, it's COVID. My labor is off. Well, it's COVID. My supplies are too high. Well, that's COVID. And somebody go, yeah, that's probably right. Well, it may be, or you may have somebody who has a food cost issue because they're handling the food wrong, or somebody's not scheduling properly, or they're abusing their supplies. So you got to unpack some of that stuff to validate what's really going on, and I can help a company do that.
Okay, great. How can people connect with you or find out more information about Paul Carolan Consulting?
Sure. My email is paul@pcarolanconsulting.com. That's CAROLAN consulting.com. And my phone number is 972-740-0817.
Hey, Paul, it's been a real pleasure to speak with you today. And it was great hearing about your experiences and some of your advice. I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Chad. Have a great day.
Thank you. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.